What it really means when he's married but still chooses you. Picture this. You're living your life. You're not chasing anything. You're not asking for attention. But then he appears. He is charming, attentive. He listens. He stays. But there's a problem. He already has someone. A wife, a family, maybe children. And yet, something in his presence pulls you in. Or maybe something in you responds to his energy. You didn't start this, but now you're here. And the question echoes, what does it really mean when a married man still chooses you? We go deeper, not with judgment, but with the truth. Because according to depth psychology, this is not about romance. It's not even about you. It's about him and what's unresolved within him. And until you understand this, you will continue to carry a weight that was never yours to carry. In the next few minutes, you'll discover the truth behind that choice. And that truth will set you free. 1. What he really seeks in you, and it's not love. When a married man comes to you, it's rarely just physical desire. It is something deeper, more urgent, and ironically, more selfish. He is seeking a sensation that he has lost or never had. Vitality, mystery, possibility. That spark that makes him feel alive again. Psychology calls this the search for the feminine energy lost in the unconscious. It's not you he wants. It is the feeling he believes you will awaken in him. It's like holding a glass against one's own emptiness and thinking that your presence will fill it. He wants validation. He wants the mystery of something new. He wants the feeling of being alive without having to face why he feels dead inside. He wants your softness, but not your needs. It wants its light, but not its limits. It wants the way you see it, but not the mirror you would eventually become. Because here's the hard truth. The deeper the connection becomes, the more he'd have to confront who he really is. And unless he's done that inner work, he's not going to stay. He cannot. Not without breaking something, you or yourself. He seeks in you the illusion of a second chance without facing the truth about the first. He wants the feeling of starting over, without the responsibility of finishing what he started. It is like wanting to harvest without planting, like wanting the dawn without going through the night. And here's what most women don't realize. When he says, "I've never felt this before," you're different. She doesn't understand me like you. Those aren't always lies, but they are not true either. They are projections, whispers of a broken self, yearning to escape responsibility and feel good again. The problem is that this feeling good is temporary. It is built on quicksand, because he's not trying to solve anything, he's trying to get away from everything. What about you? You have become the perfect vehicle for this escape. But what happens when this euphoria passes? When you start wanting more, when you ask, where is this going? What am I to you? That's where the distance begins. That's where the story starts to fragment. Because for him, this was never about building something. It was always about escaping something. Psychology shows us that men who seek connections outside of marriage are rarely looking to replace what they have. They are looking to supplement. They are seeking to fill emotional holes without doing the work of understanding why these holes exist. And that's the crucial point. He doesn't want you to build a life. He wants you to forget the life you have built. There is a brutal difference between being desired and being valued. Desire is easy, visceral, instantaneous. Value requires time, commitment, sacrifice. He desires you because you represent everything he has lost sight of in himself. But value you, that would require him to rebuild the whole structure of his life. And he's not willing to do that. So he stays in this limbo. It keeps you close enough to feed your ego, and distant enough that you don't have to face real consequences. What about you? You get caught between what he says and what he does, trying to decipher what the real truth is. The real truth is this: you were not chosen to be loved completely. It was chosen to be a break in his narrative. A break. A different note in the same tired song he's been playing for years. And until you accept this, you will continue to wait for a transformation that will never come. 2. The projection, you never were you. Here's something that will mess with you. He's never really seen you. What he saw was a version of you that matched his need, not your reality. It was a projection, a blank canvas where he painted exactly what he needed to see to feel complete again. Depth psychology teaches us that the unconscious seeks balance. So if a man feels lost, numb, lifeless, his psyche will look for the opposite to restore him. But if he hasn't done the inner work, he won't see you clearly. You will see a fantasy that matches your neediness. You have become the embodiment of everything he thinks is missing in his life. You are the adventure he doesn't have, the passion that has cooled down, the attention he no longer receives, the admiration that was lost in accounts, routine and discussions about who will pick up the children. But this woman he created in his head, it does not exist. It is a fragment, a mirage, an edited version of who you really are. Because to keep the fantasy alive, he needs to keep you at a distance. It needs to see you in controlled doses. It needs you to remain a mystery, not a reality. If you became real, with needs, bad days, insecurities, expectations, the bubble would burst. And he cannot allow that, because then it would have to deal with two real women instead of a fantasy and an obligation. That's why he never introduces you to his friends. That is why you find yourself in places where no one knows. That's why there is always an invisible limit that you can't cross. Because you need to stay in his imagination, not in his life. And the most painful part? You start to adapt to that version. You edit yourself. Hides your needs. He pretends he doesn't want it anymore. It becomes smaller to fit the space he is willing to offer. And in this process, you don't just lose him, you lose yourself. Psychology calls this the false self, the performative version of you that emerges when you believe your authentic self is not acceptable. And in relationships like this, the false self flourishes because the entire dynamic is based on fantasy, not reality. You become who he needs you to be. The understanding woman who never demands too much. The perfect lover who never has PMS, is never tired, never has family issues that need attention. You become a two-dimensional version of a three-dimensional human being. And here's what it does to you. Slowly, silently, you start to lose touch with who you really are. You wonder what you can or can't say. He calculates every word, every need, every emotion. It becomes strategic rather than spontaneous. And that's not intimacy. It's theater. Real intimacy requires that you be seen completely, with its flaws, its neuroses, its horrible days, its legitimate demands. But he can't offer you that because he's too busy maintaining the illusion. And you can't demand that because you're afraid that if you show who you really are, he'll leave. Then you both get stuck in this carefully choreographed dance. He projecting, you performing. And in the midst of it all, the possibility of real love dies before it even has a chance to breathe. When a married man still chooses you, it's never just about love. It's about patterns. Before you give your heart again, learn how to understand those patterns and protect your energy. Discover the Jung method. Link pinned in the first comment. 3. Why you said yes, the truth that hurts. Now let's get to the hard part. Because he may want to, but it was you who allowed it. You who opened it. You who let it go on, even if only in your mind at first. And that's not weakness. This is a sign that something inside you was hungry for attention, depth, connection, even coming from the wrong place. Maybe you've spent your whole life being the good woman, the one who waits, who gives, who puts everyone first and herself last. And then this man sees you, desires you, and for the first time you feel visible, chosen, needed. But here's the truth. Being seen by someone unavailable is not real visibility, it's emotional bait. And if you're starving, even crumbs feel like a complete meal. Ask yourself honestly, what did I expect to feel through this connection? Not what you expected him to do, but what you expected him to feel. Safety? Validation? Finally be enough? Because that's the root. That's the thread that leads back to the wound. Psychology shows us that we are attracted to people not just because of attraction, but because they reflect a part of us that we have not yet made peace with. So when you're pulled into someone unavailable, you need to ask, what am I still unavailable with within myself? Is it with your truth? His anger? It's right to be fully chosen, not hidden, not negotiated but claimed, because sometimes being the other woman isn't about seduction. It's about self-abandonment disguised as connection. You allow yourself to be part of a half-truth because you have forgotten how to stay in your full truth. Let's be honest. It is not only he who is conflicted, you can be too. Because there's a part of you that knows this isn't safe. This will not last. This will end in heartbreak or guilt, or both. And yet, you stayed. Why? Because the pain is familiar. Because you confused chaos with chemistry. Because deep down you were afraid that no one free would choose you. So you accepted someone who wasn't. Let that sink in. Not with shame, but with compassion. Because that's how healing begins. There is something in psychology called repetition compulsion. The unconscious tendency to recreate painful childhood situations in an attempt to finally resolve them. If you grew up feeling invisible, not a priority, always competing for crumbs of attention, your unconscious will look for adult situations that recreate this dynamic. And a married man is the perfect setup for that. You can never be a priority. He will always be competing. It will always be waiting for attention. It's the perfect recreation of the original wound, wrapped in romance and intensity. But here's the crucial part. You can't heal an old wound by repeating it. You only deepen it. Every time you accept less than you deserve, every time you settle for being secondary, you confirm to your unconscious that this is what you are worth. And there's more. There is a part of you that feels safe in its unavailability. Because if he can't really have you, you'll never be totally vulnerable. If he can't commit completely, you don't have to risk your heart completely. It is a protection disguised as passion. You say you want him to choose you, but a part of you chose him exactly because he can't. Because as long as he's stuck in another relationship, you don't have to face the terror of being actually seen, really known, really loved, and possibly eventually left. 4. The invisible price that only you are paying. As he comes home every night, you stay with the silence. As he celebrates holidays with his family, you wait for a message. While he sleeps peacefully next to his wife, you are awake wondering if it really matters. The emotional toll of this dynamic is devastating, and the worst thing is that it is invisible. Nobody sees it. Nobody validates it. You can't vent openly to friends without judgment. You can't post about your feelings on social media. He cannot even process the pain publicly because the entire relationship exists in the shadows. You're living in grief you can't express, carrying a relationship you can't claim, loving someone you can't fully have. And it eats away at you inside in ways you don't even notice at first. You begin to question your worth. If you were really special, wouldn't he leave her? If you really mattered, wouldn't he make it official? And these questions, these doubts, they infiltrate all areas of your life. Your self-esteem begins to depend on the crumbs of attention it offers. You light up when he texts, and you crumble when you're silent. Your inner peace is in the hands of someone who has never promised anything, but from whom you expect everything. And there is another price: time. As long as you're emotionally invested in it, you're not available to someone who could really choose you. You're stuck in a limbo, waiting for someone who's committed to someone else. Years can go by like this. Precious years where you could be building something real, solid, reciprocal. You become a smaller version of yourself. It hides part of its life. He lies about where he was, who he was with. It lives fragmented because the relationship is fragmented. And little by little, you stop recognizing who you have become. Psychology shows us that living in secret creates a specific type of trauma. You're constantly in alert mode, always hiding, always calculating, always afraid of being discovered. Your nervous system never completely relaxes, and this has real physical and emotional consequences. You may start to have sleep problems, anxiety, depression, because your body knows, even when your mind tries to deny it, that you are living out of alignment with your deepest values. Their friendships begin to suffer, because you can't be totally honest about your life. You get vague about who you're hanging out with, what you're doing. And people notice. They feel the distance even if they don't understand why. You also pay the price of the missed opportunity. While you are stuck in this dynamic, available men may notice you. They may be interested. But you're so emotionally consumed by it that you don't even see it. You close doors before they even open completely because you're saving your heart for someone who will never be able to claim it. 5. The illusion of choice. He never really chose you. Here's the harshest truth of all. He didn't choose you. He added you. There's a huge difference between these two things, and understanding that changes everything. Choosing means giving up other options. It means commitment. It means saying, it's you and acting on it. Adding means keeping all doors open. It means having you when it's convenient, without sacrificing anything you already have. He wants you, yes, but within his terms, in his time, under his conditions. This is not a choice. It's convenience disguised as a special connection. A man who really chooses you doesn't hide you. It doesn't fragment you into stolen moments. It doesn't relegate you to late-night messages and secret dates. He integrates you into his life because you are his life. And psychology shows us something fascinating. A divided man cannot love fully, because true love requires total presence, vulnerability, transparency. And how can he offer this when he is constantly calculating, hiding, dividing his attention? You get the edited version of it, the version he wants you to see. Never the complete man with all his flaws, contradictions, and the mess of real life. And that means that what you have is not real. It's a performance, a prominent relationship, not a backstage one. And here's what you need to understand. As long as he doesn't leave her, he didn't choose you. It doesn't matter what he says. It doesn't matter how intense it is when they're together. Actions are the only truth that matters. Words are easy. I love you. You're special. I'm going to leave her. These phrases don't cost anything. But change your life, facing consequences, to come out publicly? This requires courage that he does not have. Behavioral psychology teaches us something fundamental. Watch what people do, not what they say. Because actions reveal real priorities. And his actions tell you everything you need to know. He chooses to sleep next to her every night. He chooses to spend holidays with her. He chooses to keep the family intact. You get the leftovers. And there's something more insidious going on here. He can genuinely believe in his own words. It can really feel something intense when it's with you. But feeling is not the same as choosing. Emotion is not the same as commitment. And here's the part you don't want to hear. He might be saying the same things to her. When he is at home, he may be convincing his wife that she is the only one, that the marriage is strong, that he is committed. Because men like this become masters at living parallel lives, telling each woman exactly what she needs to hear to stay. You think you know him, but you only know the facet he chooses to show. The romantic, attentive, intense version. But his wife knows the man who doesn't pay bills on time, who is grumpy in the morning, who leaves clothes on the floor. She knows the real human. You know the fantasy. And ironically, that fantasy keeps you hooked. Because if you knew the real man, with all the flaws and frustrations of everyday life, you might not be so fascinated. Distance creates idealization. And idealization creates a kind of dependency that's hard to break. 6. The hidden pattern that makes you repeat it. If this isn't the first time you found yourself in this situation, pay attention. Because there's a pattern operating, and until you identify it, you're going to keep repeating the same story with different faces. Depth psychology teaches that our unconscious seeks the familiar, not the healthy. So if you grew up feeling like you needed to compete for love, that you needed to prove yourself, that you were never chosen in the first place, you're going to unconsciously recreate those dynamics in adulthood. Unavailable men become magnetically attractive because they confirm the narrative you already carry, that you don't deserve to be fully chosen. That love is something you have to fight to get, that you will always be the second option. And here's the insidious part. Every time you accept less than you deserve, you reinforce that belief. Each time you settle for crumbs, you teach your unconscious that this is what you are worth. But this story began long before him, perhaps with an emotionally absent father, or a mother who made you feel that love was conditional, or past relationships where you were never a priority. And now you're using this married man to repeat and maybe unconsciously try to heal that original wound. But you can't heal the past through the present. You can't solve your father's abandonment by accepting the crumbs of a married man. You can't prove that it's enough by becoming smaller. The pattern only breaks when you stop seeking external validation and start doing the internal work. When you stop asking, "Why doesn't he choose me?" and start asking, "Why did I put myself in a situation where not being chosen is the only option?" Until you treat the original wound, you will continue to attract the same situation. He will continue to confuse intensity with intimacy, chaos with connection, intermittent emotional availability with deep passion. And here's what's really disturbing. This anxiety can be addictive, because when it finally responds, when it finally appears, the relief you feel is so intense that your brain interprets it as passion. But it's not. It's just your nervous system going out of threat mode. You're literally addicted to the cycle of anxiety and relief. And he, consciously or not, is feeding this cycle. Because men like this know, intuitively, that keeping it in uncertainty keeps it invested. If he were totally consistent, totally available, within the limits of the situation, the intensity would decrease. Then he doses. It appears when you are starting to move away. It disappears when you are feeling safe. It keeps you eternally unbalanced. The pattern also manifests itself in the way you choose men. You probably ignore the totally available men because they seem boring, predictable, with no spark. But what you're interpreting as a lack of chemistry is actually the absence of trauma. Your body doesn't recognize security as arousal because it has never learned that love can be both. 7. How to close the loop and reclaim your power. Now let's get to what really matters. What to do with all this. How to get out of this dynamic and regain your life, your peace, your power. First, write the truth. Not romanticized history, but the raw truth. What really happened? How many times did he promise and not deliver? How many nights have you spent waiting? How many tears have you shed alone? Write without filters, then read it aloud. Listen to the parts you've been avoiding. This clarity will hurt, but it will also liberate. Second, name the need behind the attraction. What were you looking for? Protection? Validation? Passion? Now ask, how can I start giving this to myself without using someone else's confusion as a source? You'll find that the more you meet your own needs, the less magnetic the unavailable energy becomes. Third, close the cycle energetically. Even if you are no longer in contact, the bond may still be open. You think about it, you wait for messages, you feel unfinished. Write a letter that you will never send. Say it all, then burn. Loosen the loop. You're not breaking a bond, you're reclaiming your power. Fourth, stop checking. Stop looking at his social networks. Stop passing by the places where they can meet. Stop keeping the door ajar, just in case he changes. Close completely, because every time you check, you reopen the wound. Every peek is a step back in your healing. Fifth, allow yourself to feel everything. Anger, sadness, shame, regret. Do not push down. Don't be immediately distracted by another relationship. Feel with the discomfort. Cry when you need to. Shout if necessary. Because on the other side of those emotions is your liberation. Sixth, reconnect with who you were before him. What hobbies have you given up? What friendships have you neglected? What parts of you were set aside to fit the limited space he offered? Bring it all back. Rebuild your life around you, not around his availability. Seventh, seek professional help if necessary. Therapy is not a sign of weakness, it is a tool for transformation. A good therapist can help you identify unconscious patterns, process pain, and develop new ways of relating. Eighth, establish non-negotiable standards for future relationships. Not just about how you want to be treated, but about what you will no longer accept. No partial availability. No love in the shadows. No promises without actions. And finally, decide that next time you will only accept someone who chooses you completely. Not in theory, not one day, not when it is convenient. Someone who sees you, wants you, claims you in the light of day. If this seems rare, it's because you still haven't believed you deserve it. But you deserve it, he always deserved it. Healing is not linear. You'll have days where you feel strong and days where you almost text. This is normal. What matters is that each day you make the conscious choice not to come back. Every day you reinforce a new standard. And over time, something magical happens. You realize that you have spent a whole day without thinking about him, then a week, and then you meet someone new and you feel nothing, no attraction, because he was unavailable, and that doesn't move you anymore. That's when you know you've healed. When unavailable men cease to be magnetically attractive. When you see them for what they are, not fascinating mysteries but emotionally immature people running away from their own lives. 8. The woman you become after that. There is a woman waiting on the other side of this experience, a version of you that doesn't exist yet, but that is forming through this pain, through this choice to free yourself. This woman does not accept crumbs. She knows her worth not because someone validated it, but because she decided to. She doesn't wait to be chosen. She chooses herself first and allows only those who are up to the task to join her. This woman does not confuse intensity with love. She knows the difference between someone who wants her and someone who is willing to do whatever it takes to have her. She understands that beautiful words without corresponding actions are just noise. She does not hide. He does not accept relationships in the shadows. He is not satisfied with partial, fragmented, conditioned love. She knows that her love is not to live in stolen moments or whispered promises. It demands daylight. This woman understands that temporary loneliness is infinitely better than company that diminishes her. She prefers to wait for the right than to settle for the convenient. And this choice transforms everything. Because when you stop accepting less, you create space for more. Space for someone who is not divided. Someone who doesn't have to hide you. Someone whose life has a real place for you, not just stolen loopholes. This woman also developed compassion for herself. It does not punish itself for the past. He is not ashamed of the choices he made when he did not know better. She understands that she was doing the best she could with the emotional tools she had at the time. She became selective, not in an arrogant way, but in a protective way. She knows that her energy is sacred, her time is precious, her heart is valuable, and she only shares these things with people who demonstrate, through consistent actions, that they are worthy. And mature men, whole men, men ready for real love, they recognize it immediately, because she radiates something different now. No need disguised as availability, but fullness that is willing to share, not emptiness seeking to be filled. You weren't born to be an option. It is not here to be hidden. Your love is not to live in secret. Psychology reminds us the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is a reaction, both are transformed. But transformation only happens when both are present, whole, and willing. Love by half will never create complete healing. So if you've been here, in this space of being in the middle, that's not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a new one. One where its value is not defined by one's inability to commit. Where your beauty is not measured by who desires you, but by how you honor yourself. You are not awesome. It's not too intense. It is not a mistake. You are simply awakening. And with that awakening comes a choice. Keep repeating what hurts you, or start choosing what restores you. So choose. Not of fear, not of desire, but of truth. And let that truth guide you back to yourself. Because it is there in this return to yourself that the true love story begins. The story between you and the woman you are becoming. And this one no one can take away from you.